Okay, we are rolling. We are rolling, brother. Champions of Champions boxing talk here. Well, on to the big fight at the weekend. Mr. Lomachenko v Luke Campbell. Sky box office event. Now, what do I think about this fight? How do I think it's going to go? How do I think it's going to play out? Well, let's first start with, always be prepared to be right when you make a prediction in boxing. But never be shocked to be wrong, because this is boxing. That's the first thing. The second thing is Luke Campbell has a lot more experience in terms of, the level he has fought, the competition he's fought, than Anthony Yarde did against Kovalev. The problem Luke Campbell faces, though, which Anthony Yarde really didn't, is that Lomachenko is at the pinnacle of his career right now. Anthony Yarde maybe fought a slightly faded version of Sergey Kovalev, and many people do believe strongly that Lomachenko, pound for pound, is the greater fighter overall than Sergey Kovalev. Many people have Lomachenko number one pound for pound on their list, right? Luke Campbell, let's look at him. He's quite accomplished. He's an Olympian. So he does have pedigree. The Linares fight was judged as being close. Linares has actually dropped both these guys, Lomachenko and Luke Campbell. Linares beat Luke Campbell on a narrow split decision. One of the judges gave the fight to Luke Campbell. Lomachenko stops Linares in the 10th round with a withering, very sharp stabbing body punch right down the center. The clever thing about Lomachenko in that motion was he kept throwing so many shots up top that Linares was so concerned with protecting his head, he left a humongous gap for Lomachenko to exploit with a big shot. Well, it didn't look very big at the time, but when you see the replay of that shot, it's very piercing. Luke Campbell has height, reach. I think he does have respectable power. I think his feet are pretty good. I think at times maybe he, leaves his head a little high and can be countered. Luke Campbell, to me, though he did well in the Linares fight, we've got to talk about recent times. He seemed to be struggling with Linares' hand speed somewhat. And Linares' ability at times. I remember Linares, I call it like a surfer's jab, where he looks like he's sliding across the floor and wham with the jab. Luke Campbell really wasn't prepared for it, and Linares landed that clean, right? Didn't result in another knockdown, but it was a shock and awe moment. If he thinks Linares' hands are quick, if he thinks Linares' feet are quick, he's in for a shock with Lomachenko. I think Luke Campbell prefers a guy that is backing off to the ropes. I've seen this with him in a few fights where he can throw volume, break them down with body shots. Shots around the, around the guard to the earlobes, things like that. Break them down systematically. The problem with Lomachenko is he's constantly moving and you can never really predict where he's going to move next. And not only does he have good footwork, he has fast feet. I can see Luke Campbell having kittens trying to keep up with Lomachenko's footwork and foot speed in this fight. Now, people might say Pedraza managed to do pretty well for a good while v Lomachenko to the latter stages. Well, Gervonta Davis, stopped Pedraza, It was more conclusive. But the difference is, Tank Davis comes in and he's like a pile driver. You know, it's all power placement with him. Lomachenko is a mixture of everything. He kind of decides, this is why they call him high-tech, what style he's going to use at different moments at different times. Sometimes the opponent can be alright for a while with a certain method he's using until he switches. He's also a switch hitter. He can fight from either southpaw or orthodox. He has a renowned reputation for not knocking opponents out, i.e. Mike Tyson style or anything like that, but he overwhelms them to such a point that they quit themselves, right? Luke Campbell's done that a few times to opponents I've seen. But I see Luke Campbell really struggling with Lomachenko's foot speed, and I think the bigger you are, actually, when you've got a guy like Lomachenko with such fast feet that can fight on the back foot, front foot, throw, shots from almost every chapter in a book you can imagine. The taller the guy, sometimes I think the more he could be in trouble. I see Lomachenko getting close at times to Luke Campbell and nailing him to the body. Did anybody expect Anthony Crawler to go so quickly in his fight with Lomachenko? I expected it, if not to go the distance, I expected Lomachenko to stop Anthony Crawler late. Anthony Crawler is a sturdy guy. In other words, he was not known as being soft around the whiskers. But Lomachenko absolutely destroyed him. And you know what it was? Like he went to the head on Linares, and Linares threw them hands up to protect his head, and then Lomachenko stabbed him with that shot to the body. In this fight, there was variation. It was the opposite. With Crawler, he was really heavily throwing combinations, landing shots to the body. Anthony Crawler was so concerned that he put his elbows down, and before he knew it, Lomachenko switched it up and hammered him right to, I think it was the temple, with the left hand, and it was all she wrote. He can change his punch selection mid-punch. What that means is he's going for a jab or he's going for a body shot, and then he changes it to another shot, maybe up top, but he does it in an instant. And I think Luke Campbell is going to look a bit static to Lomachenko, to be honest with you. I'm not saying Luke Campbell is slow, but compared with Lomachenko, what I've seen of both these two men, he may look really slow. I see Luke Campbell in the early stages maybe doing okay until Lomachenko gets the data and starts to figure Campbell out, because Campbell, to me, is easier to figure out than Lomachenko. And Lomachenko is the master of figuring out his opponents. He fought, didn't he, in Rigondeaux? I know he was the bigger guy, but he fought what many people thought was a very complicated boxing style. And he had no problems getting shots in against one of the best defensive fighters at that point in world boxing. No problem at all. In fact, he hit him that much that even Rigondeaux said no mas. What does that tell you? Luke Campbell is going to really struggle with the foot speed, the ability of Lomachenko to shoot to head and body, two-handed fighter as well, the ring IQ. Now, Luke Campbell, to me, he proved in the Linares fight that he does have a good ring IQ. And after he was dropped, he showed spirit. He kept fighting. He kept throwing combinations. He tried himself with body shots. He tried to use the jab. Right? And as I said, he did have some success. Right? So I don't think that Luke Campbell is the sort of guy that will no mas. But it's easy saying that until you faced Lomachenko. a guy with such ring coverage. It's unreal. Boxing is about spacing, right? As I say, Luke Campbell sorts to like... To me, he looks like he likes to measure his target. This target does not let you measure it. It is constantly moving. And if it's not moving, you can guarantee there is a very sneaky plan why it's still. But Lomachenko will not be stationary. When's the last time you saw Lomachenko for an extensive period of time stationary? Let's face facts. He was dropped by Linares when he actually, I think he did go back in a straight line and was stationary for a moment. And against world-class fighters, you can get dropped. But he got up and he learnt that lesson. Didn't happen again. Right? You see, Lomachenko in the professional ranks is nowhere near as experienced as he was in the amateurs. Right? He's still picking up things. He's still getting better, I think, as a technician at this point. Yes, the reflexes are brilliant. The fitness level is brilliant. He fights like a young fighter at the moment. But sooner or later, he'll gather enough data where maybe he won't have to do as much volume. Sometimes I think you can catch Lomachenko in exchanges when sometimes he throws punches that kind of are never going to land. You're outworking the guy, you've landed the shots, and he continues to throw. I think then there's opportunities to catch him when he's throwing. I think sometimes he has a tendency maybe to waste a few punches, but maybe that's the process of him breaking his opponent down, not just to head and body, but to spirit, right? In other words, I can keep going for 3 minutes of every round. Landing or not, I'm throwing. Also, I do believe Lomachenko he's not Floyd Mayweather to hit. He can be hit. And I think the more confident he gets in fights, the easier he gets to hit. Sounds strange, but sometimes in boxing, the more confidence you get, arrogance can creep in. And it happens with the most talented of them. And what can occur then? They can take shots and receive shots that they're capable of avoiding. I sometimes think Lomachenko forgets his head movement for a second. And I wonder if it's a bit of bravado. I can outbox you. I have a better ring IQ than you. My reflexes are better than you. I can make you miss and then I can make you pay. I can beat you with volume. I can hit hard as well. Maybe not a concussive puncher, but you would think he is the way he stops people. It's just over and over and over and over again. As I said, he is like a constant fire. It is overwhelming, right? But then I wonder, does he go into the realm of I can also take your punch? That is where Luke Campbell will have opportunities. And Luke Campbell can be accurate, right? He can be accurate. Lomachenko does not want to just stand there in the pocket with Luke Campbell. But if he gets close, or I should say mid-range from Luke Campbell, but Luke Campbell's best way, he's got to keep him on the end of that jab. He's got to use that height. And he's got to set power shots up with the jab. That's what he's got to do, in my opinion. And he has to keep up constantly with Lomachenko's feet. He kind of has to mirror it and use his boxing within that movement, that motion. Because if you don't, for one moment, keep up with Lomachenko, and it's hard to do in terms of feet, he will have spun round an angle before you know it. You won't even be looking at him. He'll be at your right or he'll be at your left. It is kind of Manny Pacquiao-esque. You know, Keith Thurman in the early rounds just could not keep up with that feet. And this is unreal. That's Keith Thurman, who's got good footwork. But Manny Pacquiao and Lomachenko, they're similar in some aspects. Of course, Lomachenko is more of a switch hitter. But if you stand still against Manny Pacquiao, or you go back, walking back in straight lines, he will take advantage. Lomachenko will take advantage. Luke Campbell, I hope his fitness level for this fight is greater than ever before. I hope his concentration in terms of what he does with his feet is greater than ever before. Because if you can mirror Lomachenko's movement, you're in range to hit him. If you don't, it doesn't matter how good a punch you've got. If he's spun to the left or the right and you're still central, you're hitting fresh air and then he is cleaning your clock. That is just the way it goes. I don't think Lomachenko will have... I could be wrong. I think he wins this. I think he stops Luke Campbell late. I think, again, because Luke Campbell is tall and he kind of looks sort of lanky compared with Lomachenko, that Lomachenko does some withering body work in this fight, and I could see a Corolla-esque finish. Either a Linares-esque finish or a Corolla-esque finish. I'm thinking more along the lines of Corolla. But maybe Luke Campbell being dropped, getting up, and then the referee calling it to a halt around 9 to 11 rounds, because I think Luke Campbell will try and stay in there. But I think as the rounds go on, he's going to have less success. I think in the beginning, he may be able to mirror a little bit what Lomachenko does, but then Lomachenko gets warmed up, the speed kicks in, the reflexes kick in, and Lomachenko gets fitter as the fight goes on. His last victory, or the one before that against Pedraza, he got better as the fight went on. Early, it looked like Pedraza is in this. But Lomachenko made adjustments, and his fitness and his work rate went to another level. I see the same in this, and I see Luke Campbell tiring. And I see a few wide with fatigue. I see a wideish stance, and I see a few wide punches. And if you punch too wide, Lomachenko's hand speed can make the gaps and the distance count. If you stay compact, he'll punch around you. I mean, he is just at his peak right now. I can't see very few fighters in the world beating this guy. You have to have the feet. You know, no matter how good you are with your hands, and I think he's got faster hand speed than Luke Campbell as well. As I say, Luke Campbell was bothered by Linares' hand speed. But let's just imagine that Luke Campbell's timing could nullify that. Again, his feet have to be caught up to for you to operate and use your timing and shoot between the gaps. Pedraza, to me, had faster feet than Luke Campbell. Luke Campbell is bigger. And as I said, against a certain level of opponent, his feet look good. But when I watch Lomachenko's movement and I watch Campbell's movement, and I just imagine the two in the ring, and as I said, when the adrenaline's there, you're at home. Luke Campbell is at home. You may make a brilliant start, right? Everything is functioning when the adrenaline wears off, and the plan to keep up with Lomachenko's legs means that you can sort of attempt to land yours. You may land some, but then he hits you. And everything changes when the opponent lands the first shot, and you might go back to type. I'm not being disrespectful. I think Luke Campbell is potential world class. But his feet look like Frankenstein feet compared to this guy. You know, I do just see angles, movement, hand speed, particularly body shots. I see Lomachenko darting in at times and firing to that body. And Luke Campbell not knowing which hand he's going to fire it with and what side of his body, and switching up. He is a puzzle, Lomachenko. He's one of those fighters, you say he's a switch hitter. You kind of know what he's going to do, you just don't know when he's going to do it and how he's going to do it, because he can do most of it all, right? And as I said, I think right now he's at his pinnacle. If Luke Campbell was to win this, it would be a monumental shock. But, as I said, I'm a fan of Lomachenko. I hope Luke Campbell does well, but I just see High Tech breaking him down as the fight goes on. And I see Luke Campbell getting discouraged when he realises that everything he does, Lomachenko's got an answer for. That's me. So, staking the claim now, I see Lomachenko stopping Luke Campbell, the referee, or somebody throwing the towel in around 9 to 11 rounds. I see Luke Campbell being gallant, wanting to go on, but his corner not letting him go on. And I see Lomachenko taking the KO, the stoppage victory. So it's a Lomachenko win for me, with a gallant first 3 rounds. Good effort from Luke Campbell. But Lomachenko's lane is down the stretch. You know, he is not just a 1 or 1 to 4 round fighter. He's a fighter, full stop. That's what he does. And he has the sweet science. He can go to war. He can box. He can outthink you. He can outmove you. His reflexes, his hand speed. I haven't even mentioned his shot selection, his spacing, his timing, and a little bit of that power. He's capable of landing. This is why he stops people as well. The power might not be absolutely concussive, but before you know it, he can hit you with 2 punches or 3 punches or a combination. That, with a decent puncher, makes them look a superb puncher. I mean, Muhammad Ali was no Mike Tyson as a puncher or George Foreman, but that's how Muhammad Ali used to stop people. He had the power of, say, a very good cruiserweight, right? But he could hit you. Can you imagine a big punching cruiserweight hitting a heavyweight twice? Boom, boom. They're going to go down. Even though it's not as strong as George Foreman's 1 punch, their 2 punch is worse than receiving 1 of the big puncher, if that makes sense. And Lomachenko is that. You could take a sharp shot to your temple around the side, or an uppercut, or whatever he throws. Before you know it, he's nailed you to the body, and your hands are getting lower. The guy is elite. A pound-for-pound great. And this is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. Loma for the win. How about, brother?